Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I have a topic. It's kind of a rant, but it's also sort of a contemporary topic because I feel like this is coming back in style. I guess I'll explain it as I go through the video. But I want to kind of tell a quick story. So I watch YouTube videos as well as making them. I have certain influencers that I follow. I don't actually really watch anything about chronic illness. I usually, if I just want to watch something, it's for enjoyment, just something to unwind to. I don't like to inundate myself with chronic illness when I'm watching something just casually. So I have one influencer that I watch. I'm not going to say her name, but she's actually pregnant. She's much younger than me. She's probably in her late 20s, probably getting close to 30. And she announced that she was pregnant. It was kind of out of the blue. And I was kind of excited for her, but it was a little bit weird because in previous videos she had discussed, they wanted her and her boyfriend wanted to move into another house. They were planning a wedding. All of these things that were like kind of just forgotten, like she never mentioned it again, and then suddenly here she is, she's pregnant. And then as the video went on, she talks about how she was going to so many baby showers, and people kept asking her when she was going to have a kid. And she says that she just hated that. She says, I hate it so much when people ask me that. Like, it bothers me so much. um and it bothered her so much that she, I guess, decided to get pregnant so people would stop asking her. I mean, she didn't say that, but I could tell that there was something that influenced her decision a lot, because she really made a point of it. She made a point to say that everybody was having a baby and she was going to so many baby showers, and that people would always ask her when she was going to have a kid. And to me, this is something that really bothers me a lot. And it really made me angry to sort of hear this, even though it's not her fault. I was directing my anger towards her. I was like, how can you have a child because people are being annoying about it? But really, it isn't her fault. We, for whatever reason, in our society, we still have not gotten to that point where we mind our business, especially when it comes to women's reproductive health. And that's why I'm saying that this is a very contemporary, very current topic when it comes to having kids, and when it comes to not having kids. Um, and I also believe that there is this sort of underground movement that I have seen on social media, where people are just, it bothers them a lot to see people not having kids. But I might talk about that a little bit more later on. The reason I really get bothered by this kind of thing is because I've worked with children extensively. For many of you that are new to this channel, or actually, I think I may not have mentioned this before, I was a substitute teacher for probably 7 years. It's the job that I've held for the longest during my chronic illness. And the reason I became a substitute teacher was because I was chronically ill, because I needed a flexible schedule in order to go to like physical therapy, doctor's appointments, and things like that. I've never been a huge fan of kids. I never planned to have any children. I can't have any children anymore, but it was never in my plans. But I became a substitute out of necessity. And I was a substitute in a very low income, kind of inner city school district. It was a tiny school district, but I had a lot of work. And let me tell you, it's not as easy, and it's not as pleasant. Well, I don't think anybody thinks, being a substitute is pleasant, but you see a lot of things. You see kids that are obviously abused, but you can't really prove it. You see kids that are neglected. You see kids that are chronically ill. You see kids that are disabled. And I actually worked very closely with some disabled kids, and children with autism. So you see the worst of the worst. And so when I see people having kids, or saying that, so and so is having kids, and I didn't want to feel left out, which is basically what this girl was saying. I don't want to put words in her mouth, but that's exactly how it came across, that everybody was having kids except her. And so it was like, but I want to do it too. Having kids is a huge, huge responsibility. And it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. Just being a substitute teacher was not easy. And I just can't understand people that have children just because everyone else is doing it, or because they're jealous or they're envious of other people. But I can't be angry at her, because our society has sort of made it that way. We've made it so that we feel that it's okay to have an opinion on whether a woman has a child or doesn't have a child, or even how she chooses to have a child or how she chooses not to have a child. So it's like I can't be too surprised, because we are always in a woman's business. Now, as we've seen that, women are having children at older ages. Back in the day, women were having kids in their early to mid 20s. Now I've seen people from my generation, people that I graduated from high school with, having kids at our age, 37, 38. We're not having their first child at that age. And of course, some of them struggle to have kids because it's a much older age. On top of that, infertility is becoming more common. Chronic illness is becoming more common. We're going to see, a tsunami of chronic illness after this pandemic is all said and done. We're going to have tons of people with long COVID, and a lot of people suffering from fertility problems. And if we don't change this attitude, or this meddlesome behavior of being in other people's business when it comes to having kids, or when it comes to not having kids, we're going to have some serious issues on our hands. There are women that develop chronic conditions after childbirth. I have a friend from college. He married a really nice girl. I think she's a bit older than me. I think they're probably, I think he's in his early 40s and she's probably either in her late 30s or around the same age. She has two little boys. I think they're like 6 and 3 now. So they're they're not little. And I think I spoke to him a couple years ago, and I think her youngest was probably like 1 at the time, because he was very, very little. He was fresh, it was her, she hadn't just had him, but he was still a baby. And she started having weird symptoms, to the point where she had to be hospitalized. And he told me, he said, we could have lost her. They found out, it took a while. They didn't know what was wrong with her. I forgot why she had to go to the hospital. It had something to do with, I think, her platelets or something. Something was going on. So it took a while, but after I think a couple of different doctors, they found out she had a rare genetic thing that made her like allergic to certain foods, to like certain meats or something. It's like some kind of rare, like, it's most common, I think, in Mediterranean people or something. I don't know. She's not Mediterranean, by the way. And so it was really bizarre, because she had, prior to her 2 kids, she hadn't had any issues, or she was fine. And then now, post 2 children, she developed this very rare, or I guess she was genetically predisposed to this very rare condition that could have killed her, and that could still kill her. She has to be on a restricted diet in order to, not end up in the hospital. And there is evidence, I believe it's commonly known, that a lot of women develop chronic health conditions or even autoimmune illnesses after having kids. So having kids takes a toll on your body as well, not just on your mind. Apart from that, just a lot of women are going to have issues trying to conceive. A lot of women don't want kids. And being, bugging women, or even making comments about when they're going to have children, or even insinuating things, is pretty insensitive, because you don't know what a person is going through. Now I want to be very clear. I have been very fortunate. Um, for whatever reason, my mom has never ever pressured me or my sister to have children. She has never mentioned it. Um, or I mean, I think it was kind of just assumed that we would have children, but her, she never was like, when are you going to have kids? You need to have kids. Never. And the people most of the people in our family are kind of the same. They've never really asked us those questions. So I've never really known what it's like to have that kind of pressure on me. And I've been very fortunate in that sense, that I didn't have that kind of mom or that kind of family. Um, so I don't really know what it's like to have that constantly, you know, people just in my ear. And I do know that there are a lot of other people, especially in certain cultures. There are a lot of like, Mexican people that say, my parents are always asking. I know Middle Eastern people. Basically, in every culture, you're going to see this kind of pressure to have kids. Um, and it can be very painful, especially for people that are dealing with fertility issues, or even for people that don't want kids. And I do believe that there are a lot of people that have children just because of the pressure, only to find out that they really don't like being a parent. It is very, very difficult, and it's very taxing on your health as well. My brother as well, I spoke about him in a while ago. He may have an autoimmune illness, and one of his sons or one of his kids had leukemia for 3 years. So you know it's very stressful to have kids, and your kid can get sick, you can get sick after you have your kids, and dealing with a chronic illness and a child at the same time. I can't even imagine what that's like. And I have met other people. I have met parents with Lyme disease, that men, actually, two men that had small children, young children, and were battling, they were still working full time, battling Lyme disease and really trying to hold it together. And it's not easy. Um, I think we need to make it more acceptable to not have kids or to not want kids, because, like I said, we're going to have this avalanche of chronic illness coming at us pretty soon. It's already here, and a lot of people are not going to be able to have children, or probably it's going to be very risky to have kids. As a matter of fact, just recently, one of my cousins, she's diabetic and she can't have children. She wants children, but she can't have children. And my mom and I were talking about that, and how heartbroken she is because she can't have children. It would be too risky because she's diabetic. And I feel like that's, and her brother and sister, my other two cousins, they both have kids. They both have, 2 to 3 kids each. And so it's really, I can understand how heartbreaking it is, but also, you know, is she dealing with any kind of outside pressure, right? Her brother and sister have kids, has maybe her friends have kids. I don't know, but I think if we made it more acceptable to not have children, um, I think it would be a lot easier for women to not have them, even if they do want them. But maybe you could make a better, more informed decision. Now, like I said earlier, there is this. At least I've seen it on social media. I don't know if I have seen it out. I think it has become very political. As you know, the Roe versus Wade decision a few months back, um, we're dealing with a lot of, what some people are calling forced birth philosophies. And I do see quite a bit of that on the internet. Basically, there's this sort of theory floating around that society is basically decaying, it's falling apart because women aren't having children, because women are not, giving birth to more kids, and they're just, they don't care about having children anymore. And I mean, I don't think that's true. I've seen a lot of people have kids. I have several members of my family that have more than one child. People are just having children willy-nilly. I don't think there's any issue right now with people not having children, but it's almost like this brainwashing, that's out there in the media, of women are not having kids anymore. Women are not engaging in relationships, and society is going to fall apart, essentially blaming women for the decay of society or whatever, all the social issues that we have right now. And that's also hard to be exposed to that, especially if you're on social media or you're watching the news and that kind of thing. And then if you have that pressure from your family or from your friends, wanting to fit in, my friends are having kids, I've seen that. I've seen that with my sister. Her friends are having kids, and then it's like, oh, I want to have kids. And then to have this rhetoric just kind of shoved down your throat, and to see people basically saying, women should not, forego having children. They're going to regret it. They're going to get old, and they're going to, hate the fact that they're alone, and just all of this really ugly rhetoric. And I think for a lot of people, like I said, I'm fortunate that I didn't have that kind of rhetoric growing up. My mom never put that kind of pressure on us. She didn't even mention marriage or having kids. But to people that have grown up in that, and then to start hearing all this stuff, and there's some people that are very impressionable, and there's some people that listen to that and they go, oh, I have to have kids. This is, especially if they want to fit in maybe with a certain political group, a group that has certain beliefs, whether they're religious or political or social beliefs, there's people that do that. There's people that have kids because of who they're surrounded by. Even, your geographic area. Are you in a more conservative state or in a more conservative town? You might feel more pressure to have children. And like I said, this isn't healthy, and it's also very dangerous for people who are chronically ill, to have that kind of pressure. And it's very painful too, especially if you did want children and you can't have children. But it's something that just really gets under my skin, because I have seen abused and neglected children. I have seen chronically ill children, children with autism, children with other disabilities. You never know what you're going to get with your kid. You can have a great pregnancy. I actually have a cousin that, had a child with certain birth defects that are going to be with him for, the rest of his life. And I think from the trauma of that, she never had another child. Even though she badly wanted another child, I think she was caught between making the responsible decision of not having another child. And I know a lot of people are going to get upset that I made that statement, or making a decision to have another child, and while having a child that was going to have chronic medical issues for the rest of his life. And I know some people get upset where it's like, oh, just because a child is chronically ill doesn't mean you can't have other children, doesn't mean you shouldn't have other children. Well, I have a different opinion on that. Yes, you can have all the kids you want. You're entitled to have all the kids you want. You can do whatever you want. Doesn't mean that it's good for your other kids or good for you. And you see that, when you have such a large family, you see everything. I have other people in my family who have had disabled children, who are now disabled adults. It's a lifelong situation. And, it just gets under my skin to see people having children, because they feel so much pressure, and we really shouldn't do that, because like I said, chronic illness is going to be a huge thing. We're going to be facing millions of people with chronic conditions, where pregnancy could be risky or it's just not possible. And on top of that, it just really isn't, it's not nice, and it's not, it's bad etiquette to be asking women because you don't know their personal situation. I'm fortunate that nobody's ever asked me, but it's so bad. You know what I mean? It's just so bad. You have no idea. You have no idea what's going to happen after you give birth. There are so many different possibilities, and so many things can happen. And I don't know, it's just something that really, really bothers me. So this wasn't so much, I guess, a chronic illness video, but it can tie into that. especially because of all the things that I've seen working with kids within my family. You know, having children is a very serious decision. You know, I have my opinions on whether people who have chronic illnesses or disabilities should have children. I know a lot of people get very upset when anybody says, you know, you start crying eugenics. You can't, you know, it's eugenics telling people not to have children. I actually should make another video because that's a huge conversation on social media, whether disabled people should have children or not. So that might be a separate video altogether. But anyways, this one has gone on long enough. Leave me your thoughts in the comments. I mean, we all have different opinions on this, but it's just something that really gets under my skin, especially because I've seen what can happen when you have kids that you don't want. So yeah, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.